Alright guys, in today's quick Photoshop tutorial, I'm going to be talking about how to create gradients. Now you can do things like have gradient text, normal gradients, you can even do things like having transparent gradients. So, in order to create a gradient, you want to go to your gradient tool. It is hidden under your paint bucket tool. If you don't see it, the shortcut is G. If you don't see it, you just click and hold on the paint bucket tool and then click on gradient tool. Now when you do that, you're going to get some options in the top bar that allow you to change the gradient and what type of gradient it is. So in order to change the gradient, you just click on the color swatch up there, and then you can adjust the color of your gradient by double clicking on these color swatches at the bottom. You can add a color swatch if you want to have more than just the basic two that you get by clicking right at the bottom of the gradient right along the line. If you decide that you don't want a color swatch, you can just pull it down and it will delete it. There are also values in your gradient, so if you click on one swatch, you're going to see this diamond icon. This is your color midpoint. You can adjust it so that you can decide how much of one color you would want in your gradient. Something I recently learned is that these top swatches actually deal with the opacity, so you can make a transparent gradient by adjusting these. So if I put this down to 0, it'll go from transparent to this purple color. Okay, so you can do that, and then you can apply your gradient by having your gradient tool selected and then clicking and dragging on your canvas. When you do it this way, it will apply the gradient to the whole layer. You can also do this with shapes, but it's a little bit different. I'm going to make a shape. I'm going to go to the fill, and under the appearance, which is in the properties panel, I'm going to click once, click a gradient, and then you'll get it. That way you can adjust it the same way you would. You click it, it's going to pop open the same panel. Now I know I applied a gradient to the layer here. I'm going to go ahead and make a new a new layer, and then I'm going to fill it by going to my paint bucket tool, fill this layer with black. When you apply a gradient to the whole layer, like the one I made at the beginning, you can't really adjust it after. You just have to like click your gradient tool and then draw it again. There's another way you can apply gradients to a layer, and it's in your layer styles panel. So I'm going to double click in the black layer beside the name. I'm going to go down here to gradient overlay, and then I have to make sure I have this selected, and you can adjust your gradient the same way in here. But what's cool about this is you can change it without having to redraw it, and you can adjust it however you want, and you can just keep doing that over and over. Whereas if I want to change the one that I made in the beginning, I can't. I have to actually redraw it, which gets kind of tedious, especially if you want it to be exactly the same. One thing I will say about the gradient overlay is if you make a new layer and it's transparent and you try to put a gradient overlay on it, here, we'll go ahead and show you here, gradient overlay, and you don't see anything happening. You have to actually have a fill for this to work. So I'm going to go to the paint bucket, fill it in, and now we can see it is applying the gradient overlay. They recently added something called methods. I'm using Photoshop 2022, and they added these different methods for your gradients: perceptual, linear, and classic. And from what I can tell, it's just different ways that the colors are blended. So if you want to actually pick what method, you go to your gradient tool and it'll pop the properties in the top here, and you can select the method here. Whatever look you're going for, change the method up here. Or if you're doing this in the shape panel, I'm selecting one of the shapes here, and I'm in the properties panel over here, and if I click on the fill, I can scroll down. Methods at the bottom. If you're doing this with a gradient overlay, you just double click into the gradient overlay. You can change the method right here, and it's pretty much that easy, guys. You just click up here and you adjust the colors, and remember the top swatches are for the transparency. Anyways guys, if you made it this far, thanks so much for watching, and I will talk to you guys again soon. Bye.